Hello and welcome to another episode of the Grow You podcast. We are so excited, so passionate about the idea of taking you from where you were to where you're going to be on the journey that God wants you to be. And I'm not going to waste any time. I'm here because I love you. I believe in you. That's what we do here at Grow You. We believe in you to be the person that God wants you to be. I'm your host, Kiefer, and this is going to be a great conversation in the thing that all of us struggle with. You see, there's 8.1 billion people on this planet. Billion with a B. And you are one of those people, and you can't avoid it. You can't avoid human interaction. So if you want to make the most of your human interaction, I have some really great, super practical tips for you today that you can make the most of the thing you have to do. Ready? Well, ready or not, here we go. So the first thing we want to talk about with human interaction is nailing the first impression. We can't help but think, when I meet somebody, did they like me? Was this a good conversation? That insecurity is a valid one, unfortunately, because whether you're schmoozing over your boss, whether you're presenting something at work, or whether you're just meeting somebody at a general human interaction, social gathering, first impressions are so important. And the problem is you only get one first impression. You only get one opportunity to make the most of that first impression. Now, the big problem with first impressions is, well, we oftentimes don't know how to start that interaction. A gal by the name of Anne Damaris, author of First Impressions, What You Don't Know About Others, that says the most. She says this: people start forming an impression of you initially from when they meet you, just on your body and the way you're dressed and the way you carry yourself. And then in the course of an initial conversation, that will be the unit of time that they gauge you off of. So if you have 5-minute conversations, you'll probably use that first 5 minutes. So the initial moment that someone sees you, interacts with you, thinks about you, that's what they're going to think based off that conversation. So you have that first impression to make the most of that first impression. So here's how we can make the most of that first impression. And the difficult thing, this isn't fair, but it's very difficult to recover from a bad first impression. In fact, there's this phenomenon in human thinking. It's an idea that our human inclination to think about people is usually based off the first impression. We make a mental snapshot of somebody, and that's what we use for the rest of our interactions with them. It's called thin slicing. It's the idea that who you are is really based off that first interaction. And we have to do a lot as humans to overcome that. So let's talk about how to make the best first impression. So here's the first thing. You need to walk into that first impression with the right mindset. So before we even start the interaction, right, we want to start with our intention. So start the interaction with your intention. When you go into a conversation, why are you there? Why are you wanting to talk with somebody? Are you wanting something from them, or are you wanting to give them something? Are you wanting to use them, or wanting to make them better? Human beings are more perceptive than we give ourselves credit for. We have the ability to take sight, sound, verbal, nonverbal cues, even our smell receptors, to be able to tell if someone is the real deal. And so you need to make sure that you're walking into every interaction with the right intention, to be authentic, to want to love someone, to want to care for them, even if you don't necessarily know them, even if you don't like them. You need to make sure that the you that you're presenting is authentic and real and caring, and when they walk away from that interaction, they're better for it, even if you might need something from them. So make sure your intentions are appropriate, intentions are proper, because if not, they're going to be able to suss that out quick. So beforehand, we want to start with the right intentions, but then we want to go during, right? So initially, when we first meet somebody, that first interaction with somebody, we need to master the first touch point. So every first impression starts with some form of a touch point. Maybe it's as you walk into a room and, hi, how are you? Hello, hey, good to see you. You want to make that first impression be one of authenticity and openness and kindness. Start with a smile. Start with an open wave. Start with a, hey, I'm here as a friend. I'm here as a helper. When we open palm, when we wave at somebody, that signals something to the people around us. Friend. Waving is friend. Hello, I'm your friend. When we walk in reserved and stoic and grumpy and reserved, the initial thing is like, I don't want to go talk to that guy. She seems a little standoffish. But when we walk in with a smile, I'm not saying the big PR, cheesy, hey, how you doing, grin. I'm talking about something that's authentic to show I'm here and I'm happy to see you. So maybe when you walk into a room, you want to start with a smile. You want to start with a wave. Maybe you're introduced to somebody. Maybe you're introducing yourself to somebody. So in that first touch point, you want to make the most of that first impression. So here's how you can make the most of those kinds of things. And one of the biggest issues that you run into is the awkward, is this a hug moment? Is this a handshake moment? Is it a high five, fist bump? I've been in those so many times. Someone goes in for a handshake or a fist bump, and I do the opposite. One of my favorite things to recover from one of those is called the gear shift. They come in with a fist bump, right? We're in post-COVID pandemic kind of a mindset, so people oftentimes want to do the elbow or the fist bump, and that's totally fine. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll go in for the handshake still, they go in for the fist bump, and I accidentally end up putting my hand on their fist. So you know what I'll do? I'll do the gear shift. I'll go, it doesn't always recover, but sometimes it does. But you find yourself in that situation. What you want to do is you want to let them make the first move. So if someone comes at you, arms open, full front posturing towards you, they're probably going to want to hug. Different societies, different people are huggers. I myself, I don't care whether you hug me or not, but if you see this, that's a hug. Now, your response, most times, just do the gesture that they're doing. So if they want to hug, quick hug, that's fine. But let's say they're coming in side slice. Their body is angled towards you. They're making the eye contact, their hand in front of them. Maybe it's a handshake, maybe it's a fist bump. Okay, that's a handshake, that's a fist bump. You want to react in the same way. So you want to let them go first. Maybe they're just standing there, smiling politely, kindly, hand wave. Hi, how are you? Yes, hi. Okay. You don't want to go in like this. You don't want to go in with the handshake or the hug. You want to match their positioning, right? So that's how you master that touch point, right? You want to let them go first, and you want to match their touch point. All right, so that's initially. But let's talk about during. So when you're in a first impression, a first interaction, you've nailed the walking in. You're, hey, how are you? Hey, so-and-so. Hey, I want to introduce you to this person. They come in, they get the handshake. Hi, how are you doing? My name's Kiefer. What's your name? Oh, it's nice to meet you. Genuine pleasure. Now you're in the conversation. So when you're in the conversation, what do you want to do? You want to be a generous, you want to be a selfless conversationalist. Okay? You want to be a selfless conversationalist. Now, after you have initially started conversation, one of the best ways to be a selfless conversationalist, not a selfish conversationalist, is to make it more about the person you're talking with and less about yourself. So you want to act almost as a trampoline, right? They're jumping onto you, and rather than you absorbing it and holding on to them, right? You want to bounce off. Think about it like we're playing catch. If me and you are playing catch, we're throwing the ball back and forth. I throw the ball to you, you throw the ball back to me. Then what should I do? I should throw the ball back. But if I hold on to the ball, I'm not being a very nice playmate. I'm not being a very generous and selfless conversationalist. So when we're talking with somebody, we want to make things that make them about them. People love talking about themselves, right? It's one of the favorite things to talk about, and their subjects of things that they love talking about themselves is top priority. So you want to make the conversation about them. Easiest way to do that? Ask questions. So if they're talking about themselves, you want to ask questions. So let's say they recently said, oh, I love horses. I've recently picked up horseback riding. And by the way, if you're like, hey, Kiefer, how do you start a good conversation question-wise? Ask interesting questions. Please don't ask the boring, normal questions that get asked. Don't talk about the weather. Please, we all know it's rainy out. You don't you need an umbrella today, don't you? Awful chilly, isn't it? Oh my gosh, let's please stop talking about the weather. Don't necessarily even ask somebody what they do. Yes, that can come up, that can be an interesting thing, but you want to ask them the questions about themselves that matter the most. Hey, tell me something exciting going on. Anything good happening in your life lately? Did you go anywhere interesting recently? What's the most interesting food that you ate lately? Ask them interesting questions. So let's say you ask one of my favorite questions, hey, is there anything exciting in your life right now? And they tell you, oh, well, I picked up horseback riding recently. The wrong thing to do is, oh, whenever I was a kid, I rode a horse. And here's a funny story about that. No. Tell you the funny story. Now, if they ask you that question, absolutely. You can tell your funny anecdote or story. But the response says, oh, that's super interesting. How did you get involved in that? Boom. Then let them talk. A good rule of thumb is that when someone's talking with you, ask questions. Only answer and put input if they ask for input. Okay? That's how we can be a selfless conversationalist, not a selfish conversationalist. Now, this next section we're going to talk about really goes more into the conversation piece. Okay? But for that first impression, remember, we're going to start with the right intention. Okay? We're going to go into it with the right mindset. Authenticity, loving them. Remember, human interaction, the best thing, we want to leave them better than when we found them. How do you do that? Okay, so you walk in with the right intention. Initially, you want to match their style of greeting. And then while you're there, you want to be a selfless conversationalist. But let's get into the next section. Let's talk about while you're in the conversation, what do? You want to give the gift of being fully present. Give the gift of being fully present. So it's a few years ago, and my buddy and I were working out at the local Planet Fitness. And there's this guy who happens to be there at the same time as us. His name is Bob. And Bob is a gentleman who nearly every single time he goes into the Planet Fitness, while we're there, he's rocking sweatpants or jeans. Yes, I said jeans. And a raincoat. It doesn't matter if it's raining outside. He always has the raincoat. Now, it seems like Bob only has a membership at Planet Fitness to bother us and interrupt our workouts. To start up conversations, to strike up a conversation with us. So it's one particular workout, and we're getting our sweat on. We got our headphones in. We're getting after it. Bob comes over. He sees the headphones. He sees that we're sweating. We're out of breath. We must want a conversation. So he comes sauntering up, cup of coffee in hand. The man is never without a cup of coffee. Always has his cup of coffee in hand, and he starts in. Now let me ask you, do you have one of those friends? One of those ride or die kind of friends that when the stuff hits the fan, man, they are with you no matter what. This friend of mine is not one of those friends because as soon as Bob comes sauntering up, my friend has to go to the bathroom. I don't believe it. He darts, made like a fart in the wind. He's gone. And I'm left by myself with Bob. Well, Bob starts in. He's talking about all of his medical problems. He's talking about how he's just got these allergies because of the weather outside and how he's got these medical conditions. He's got a rash right here in his thigh that he's really concerned. He probably should get it checked out. And how, COVID is going on at the moment and he just doesn't know if he should be out right now. And every little bit he's inching closer and closer and closer to me until we're about a foot away from each other face-wise. Now, I didn't appreciate much of anything about the pandemic season. But one thing I think was a good thing. Social distancing. Keep your distance while you're talking with me. You don't need to get all up in my business. Well, Bob is up in my business, and I'm trying to give him every single cue and sign that I am not interested in this conversation. I'm turned the other way. I got my head down. I got my headphones in. I am kind of just like looking the other way. So I'm not paying attention, looking at anything but Bob, but he's just not getting the signal. And in my mind, there's this voice that's running through. Gosh, dude, I'm not a doctor. I don't need to hear about your rash. What are you doing? Leave me alone. But then there's that other voice that chimes in. You know the one. It's the one that we oftentimes chalk up to our conscience, but it's not Jiminy Cricket speaking into our blockheads telling us good or bad. It's the God of the universe. And he's telling me that what Bob needs right now is him, is God. And because God is with me, well, Bob needs me. And it's then I get convicted and I realize I am not loving Bob appropriately. I need to give him a gift. So what do? I take my headphones out. I turn front face towards Bob. I look him in the eye. I nod. And I ask questions. I sympathize with him. And in time, I start to empathize with him. I go from being a self-ish conversationalist to a selfless conversationalist. I make it more about the person in front of me than the person of me. And in time, Bob receives a gift from me. It's the gift of my full attention. And in any conversation, that's what we need to give. The gift of our full attention, being fully present with that person. So here's a couple of ways that we can be fully present with somebody. If you're looking for a couple of great books, here's one recommendation, one that you cannot go wrong with. It's called Cues. It's the mastering the secret language of charismatic communication. It's by a wonderful woman named Vanessa Van Edwards. She is the founder and active person in the science of people. It's a great organization. If you're wanting to learn how to love people better in your conversation and be more standout and charismatic in the way that you talk, she is a fantastic person to get from. But this is what Vanessa has in this book. She says that in conversations, verbal or nonverbal, we have these cues, these signals that we give to people in conversations. And that if you want to make the most of human interaction, then you need to master these cues. So she has a couple of them that she highlights about conversations and being fully present. So the first one that I want to talk about from there, Vanessa says fronting. Fronting is one of the best things you can do in a conversation. She says this: fronting is when you angle your body to signal attention. Specifically, we point our 3 T's: our toes, our torso, and our top toward whatever we're paying attention to. Our physical orientation cues others as to our mental orientation. Fronting is a great cue to know what someone is thinking about. So just a good rule of thumb is face towards somebody when you're talking with them. Not angled, not looking that way or this way, face forward. Toes pointed towards them, torso and top pointed towards them. That helps you know that I'm fully engaged with you. I am in this conversation, right? That's a great way for you to make someone feel that you're fully present. So the second one is eye engagement. And notice I didn't say eye contact, eye engagement, okay? So ever since we were kids, we were always told, like, look someone in the eye when they're talking to you and when you're talking to them. Now, we always, do this, but why? So why we do this is because it signals something when we're talking to someone or when they're talking to us. It signals engagement. It signals that we are present, but that says something so powerful to somebody. Now, socially, eye contact says, I am with you, but also says you're important. You matter to me. So when we engage in eye contact with someone, when we engage them with our eyes, we're saying you're important, you matter. Now that does something actually physiologically to somebody. Chemically, eye contact gives someone several different chemicals, but the biggest one it gives them is oxytocin. So oxytocin is a chemical that produces pleasure. It gives all the happy, good feelings. So literally, when you're giving eye contact to somebody in a conversation, you're giving them happiness. You're giving them the chemical that induces happiness. So while someone's talking, don't look this way, that way. Don't look at your phone, please. By the love of the good Lord, don't look at your phone when someone's talking to you. Give them the gift of eye contact. That's super huge. Now, so we've talked about the idea of fronting, of eye engagement, but there's also verbal and nonverbal cues that we can give to somebody in conversation. Now, being fully present, it's not just about what you say, it's how you say it, and it's also what you don't say. So while you're talking with somebody, there's a few good examples that Vanessa gives in her book that's incredibly helpful while someone's talking. So one of the biggest ones, okay, is what you're doing with your head. So I want you to do this right now. While you're sitting here listening, whether you're watching this, whether you're listening, I want you to just tilt your head like a dog whenever they're seeing a treat. Tilt your head. And then I want you to nod. Automatically, what you've just engaged is engagement. You've realized, oh, I'm tilting my head, I'm leaning in, I'm kind of getting a better focus on something. That shows that you're engaged in something or someone. We do that whenever we are trying to get a closer look at something, right? Imagine that as you're talking with somebody. As they're talking, just lean your head and nod. Not like a bobblehead, you know? But one of the greatest gifts that you can give to somebody in communication is the nod. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I'm nodding. I'm engaged in what you're doing. A good thing, especially if you want someone to talk more, it's called the triple slow nod. So it's nod, nod, nod. Yeah, I get you. Go ahead, keep talking. I'm listening. Nod, nod, nod. It's a good way to kind of engage in there. So when you're talking to somebody, give them that. Also, express your face. Don't just, I'm listening. Yes. No, you need to have your face match the intensity. Someone's telling an exciting story, man, eyebrows up. Yeah, smile. Wow, that's cool. Interesting. Tell me more. Don't be confused. Eyebrows together in kind of a scowl. Now, if someone's telling you something interesting, facts, you can have eyebrows raised, mouth kind of neutral. But you can also have kind of a eyebrows together and curious. Okay, I didn't know that. Lips pursed in kind of an interested kind of way of looking. So match your facial expression to what someone's saying. But one of the greatest gifts you can give is a savor smile. Imagine you just took that's such a good meal. That makes me feel so good. You eat your favorite meal, you take a sip of your favorite drink, you're savoring that with that smile. While someone's talking, a great gift you can give is just a savor smile. Yeah, I'm enjoying this conversation. Talking with you is like a great sip of a great drink. So you can give these nonverbal cues just in the way that you communicate, right? And leaning in, that's another good one. When you're leaning in, it's like I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm listening to what you're talking about. That's such a big one. But one of the big ones you can give is verbal communication, verbal acknowledgement in what someone's saying. So have you ever been in one of those moments where you're on the phone, right, and you're talking with somebody and it's dead silence? And you have to ask the question, are you still there? Can you hear me? The reason is because the person on the other end, I should probably hang this up, I don't know why I still have it. The person on the other end of the phone is not signaling back to you. They're not giving you the gift of a verbal cue. So while you're talking to somebody, one of the greatest gifts you can give is yeah, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. No way. Are you serious? Wow. Oh, that's so interesting. Huh, I didn't know that. Really? Oh, okay. You give the little verbal cues to show that you're interested in the conversation. Now, make sure they're authentic. Make sure they're actually coming from a good place. But you want to be a good audience. Because in the end, someone is giving you a performance. They're giving you information. And just like you would in a TV show, in a book, in a movie, you want to react. You want to be a good audience. So when you signal verbally, you're giving them the gift of a reaction. These are all things that you can do to say to the person, I'm interested in you. You're important. And that's huge for any interaction. The last thing I want to talk to you about is the cues to avoid. Now, in her book, Cues, Vanessa talks about these as danger zone cues. These are ones that you want to avoid like the plague when you're talking with somebody, because they're ones that actually make you socially less attractive. And I'm not talking about a sexual attraction. I'm talking about a social attraction that makes people want to be with you. And we are people who need people. God made us for human interaction. And so oftentimes we ask ourselves, like, why don't I have any friends? Why don't I have any people in my life? Now, there's a whole swath of reasons why sometimes someone might not have humans in their lives, but one of the biggest ones is we may or may not be signaling these danger zone cues. We may or may not be doing something, consciously or unconsciously, that could be telling people, don't be with this person, don't interact with. And so there's very subtle things that you can do to just clean up your cue library and make it easier for someone to interact with, because you're great. And people need to know how great you are. And one of the easiest ways is you eliminate as many stumbling blocks as possible so they can know how great you are. So here's a couple of cues to avoid. First off, you can just do literally the opposite of everything that I've already said. If you're doing the opposite of what I've already said, just do the opposite of the opposite. So as you're talking with someone, if you're just not doing eye contact with them, and you're just, or you're not signaling at all, you're just staring off, or you're, Lord Almighty, if you're on your phone. A phone should not be anywhere near a conversation. If as you're talking, you have your phone out, and you're just texting, and you're just, yeah, or you're not even doing that at all, eliminate it. Phone should be nowhere near human interaction. Even on the phone, even on the table. What we've found in studies is that when you're talking with someone, having your phone present on the table, even face down, is something that people perceive as rude. People perceive as, this person doesn't respect me, they don't care about me. So keep it in your pocket. Only in emergency situations should you respond to a text or a phone call. Okay? It's super big. But doing the opposite of anything that I've talked about so far, easy way to get into the danger zone for someone not to want that human interaction with you. But here's a couple of other things to avoid. The first one is closed body posture. So when you're talking with someone, open body. So statistically, social science tells us that our chest, our torso, is one of our, it's a sensitive spot, right? It's got our heart, it's got major vital organs. And so socially, we're going to protect that if we're going to be in a situation where we're uncomfortable, okay? But opening it up, I mean, that shows friends, that shows I'm trusting you. Those are good ways to open yourself up. So in a situation, if you want someone to feel more comfortable, if you want to open up trust bylines in between you and someone else, open posture. Okay? So one of the best things to do is take a look at how you're sitting, how you're standing. If you're sitting there and kind of slouched, body posture, closed off, this signals I'm not comfortable with you. I'm not comfortable in this situation. I don't want to be here. Could also say that I'm cold, So that's why we always want to look at several cues stacking up. But if someone's closed off, just sitting there, arms crossed, feet crossed, they don't want to be here. So in a situation, you want to open up your body posture. You want to lean in. You want to show, hey, I'm engaged with you. I'm here with you. And sometimes we think, oh, well, that people want me to be cool. People want me to be aloof. So I'm going to kind of stand back. I'm going to lean against something. I'm going to kind of arms cross. I'm going to just look across, and I'm going to show that I'm cool. That's what cool people do. People don't want someone like that. They want someone who's going to want to be with them. And when you signal this way, you're showing, hey, I'm for you. I'm with you. So make sure your body posture is not closed off. Another huge one to focus on is the resting Grinch face. We've used other words for that, but I'm going to say Grinch face. So if you're talking with somebody and you're just angry, scowl face, you're not emoting, you're just there, people are going to perceive that as, I don't think he likes me. I don't think she's a fan of me. So they're not going to engage with you. So your face, make sure you're thinking about what your face is doing. If you're kind of grumpy and scowled, okay, that's going to communicate something to someone. But if you're open-faced, if you're smiling, if you're engaged with somebody, wow, they're going to want to talk more. Now, one quick word, if you're interacting with someone who you don't want to talk with, who you feel is maybe a danger person, someone who is unhealthy, you're going to want to signal to them that you don't want to be with them. Grump face, arms crossed, feet crossed, slouch posture, don't look at them, don't engage with them. These are good ways for you to cue, hey, I don't want to talk with you. You're a danger person. Okay? Cues can be a powerful thing, and it's important for us to know how to use them to make someone feel how we're feeling in those conversations. Big bummers. We're out of time. We got to roll on to the next thing, but it has been such a blessing being able to talk with you, to share some of these things with you. Again, our hope and our desire is we want to make you better. We want to make you a little bit closer to that person that God is making you to be. So these, just think of them as tools in your toolbox, so you can get a little bit closer to the person that God wants you to be, to get that 1% better. I want to tell you, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for welcoming me, us, into your lives, into your ears, into your heart. It means so much. If you think this is something that's beneficial, if you think this is something that someone else could benefit from, please share it. Please send it to somebody. Please like it on social media. Please share it on social media. These are ways that other people can get the benefit that you think that this is. I want to say a big thank you to Rachel. Thank you so much for setting this up. Thank you so much for editing this, for sending out our awesome newsletter, for so many things. Thank you so much to all of you for this. It's a true gift. And I want to let you know, I love you. I'm for you. And I want you to keep growing, keep getting better. Make yourself that 1% better so that when you go out in the world, you can help make this world a little bit better. Keep growing. We'll see you next month.
Grow You is a next-gen affiliation with Park Chapel Christian Church in Greenfield, Indiana. Grow You podcast is hosted by Kiefer Honeycutt. Music composed by Marble Space. Like and subscribe on YouTube and/or Apple and Spotify podcasts.